I love serving others. But sometimes I feel so empty.
Some people carry the heaviest burdens with the quietest smiles. They show up early. They serve without complaint. They never ask for anything in return. And everyone assumes their life must be easy because they never let it show otherwise. But sometimes the people who seem the most put together are the ones barely holding on. 3 women in this church were loved by everyone. Until one night, someone saw something that changed everything. Stay with me until the end because before this story is over, you might see someone in your own life a little differently. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Every Sunday at Grace Community Church in Millbrook, Ohio, the same 3 women arrived before anyone else. Diane unlocked the fellowship hall. Carol set up the coffee urn. And Patricia arranged the folding chairs in neat, even rows, the way she'd done for 11 years. They were the backbone of the church. Diane taught the children's Sunday school class, patient with every wiggling 6-year-old. Carol ran the meal train for anyone who was sick or grieving. Patricia organized the clothing donations, quietly making sure no family in the congregation ever went without a winter coat. People said things like, "I don't know what this church would do without those 3. And they meant it. What no one knew was that after the last hymn was sung and the lights in the sanctuary went dark, all 3 women drove 20 minutes across town to the Millbrook Regional Care Center, where they worked the overnight shift as home health aides, bathing, feeding, and comforting elderly patients whose own families rarely visited. It wasn't glamorous work. It didn't pay well. But it paid enough, barely enough, to keep Diane's grandson in the specialized preschool he needed after his diagnosis. Enough to keep Carol's husband's dialysis appointments covered after his hours got cut at the plant. Enough to keep the lights on in Patricia's house after her daughter's marriage fell apart. And she moved back home with 2 kids and nowhere else to go. They never spoke of it at church. Not because they were ashamed of the work, but because they were exhausted from carrying it, and Sunday mornings were the one place they got to simply be people who loved God, without anyone asking questions they didn't have the energy to answer. Then one Tuesday night everything changed. A new nurse at the care center, someone who didn't know them, someone who had visited Grace Community exactly once with a friend, recognized their faces. She posted a photo in the church's private Facebook group. 3 women in scrub tops instead of Sunday dresses, captioned simply, "Isn't this Diane, Carol, and Patricia from Grace Community? Working nights at the care center? Guess even the perfect ones have secrets." It wasn't cruel. It wasn't even meant to hurt. But by Wednesday morning it had 200 comments. "I always thought something seemed off with Diane. Why keep it hidden if there's nothing wrong with it? Makes you wonder what else they're not telling us." By Thursday, the whispers had a name. The Sunday school secret. Nobody asked the 3 women directly. Instead, people simply started pulling back. A neighbor who usually waved from her porch looked away instead. A woman in the pew behind Patricia moved to sit somewhere else. Someone quietly suggested, in a meeting Diane wasn't invited to, that maybe it was time for fresh faces in the children's ministry. Diane found out on a Friday afternoon, standing in the church parking lot with a stack of construction paper for Sunday's lesson, when another mother told her, gently but firmly, that the committee had decided to give someone else a turn. She didn't argue. She just nodded, got in her car, and cried the whole way to work that night. Carol heard about it from her husband, who'd heard it from a friend at his dialysis clinic, of all places. Word had traveled that far. "People are saying you 3 have been hiding something," he told her carefully, watching her face. She didn't answer right away. She just sat down at the kitchen table and put her head in her hands. Patricia was the one who finally broke. It happened on a Sunday after service when the pastor's wife, well-meaning but blunt, asked her directly in front of 3 other women, "Patricia, is it true you've been working nights at that care facility? Why would you keep something like that from us?" Patricia felt every eye in the room turn toward her. And for the first time in 11 years of never asking anyone for anything, she said the truth out loud. "Because my daughter's marriage fell apart, and she came home with nowhere else to go, and 2 kids who needed a bed and food and someone to pick them up from school. Because after Grandma's health insurance stopped covering her care, I needed a second income fast, And this was the only job that would take someone my age on short notice. Because I didn't want anyone's pity. I just wanted to keep my family standing without falling apart in front of everyone who's known me since I was 30. The room went silent. She wasn't finished. You all call this a family. But when my daughter needed help 18 months ago, I asked the benevolence fund for a small loan to cover a deposit on an apartment for her and the kids. I was told the fund was tight that quarter, so I stopped asking. I found another way. And I never once stopped showing up here, because this church is still my home, even when it forgets to be one for me. Diane, who had walked in just in time to hear the last part, stepped forward. My grandson has autism, she said quietly. The preschool he needs isn't covered by insurance. I work nights so he can have a chance at a normal life. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm tired of people acting like it's something to be ashamed of. Carol was the last to speak, her voice shaking. My husband is on dialysis 3 times a week. Someone has to pay for what insurance won't. I didn't hide this because it's wrong. I hid it because I was tired of being someone's charity case before I was even asked how I was doing. The pastor, who had been standing near the back of the room, walked forward slowly. His voice, when he finally spoke, was heavier than usual. I remember when Patricia came to the benevolence committee, he said. I remember telling them we'd revisit it the following month. I never followed up. I assumed it had been handled. He looked around at the room full of familiar, uncertain faces. It wasn't handled. It was forgotten. And these 3 women carried the weight of that forgetting silently, for over a year. Nobody spoke. Because sometimes silence is the loudest confession of all. The following Sunday, the pastor stood at the front of the church before the service even began. Last week, he said, we learned something important, not about 3 women who were hiding something shameful, but about a church that stopped asking hard questions about the people quietly holding it together. He looked out at the congregation. Faithfulness isn't proven by how spotless someone's life looks on a Sunday morning. It's proven by what they carry the other 6 days of the week, and by whether the rest of us are willing to help carry it too. He turned to Diane, Carol, and Patricia, who stood near the front, and for the first time in weeks, nobody looked away. We failed you, he said simply, and we're going to do better. That morning, without anyone organizing it, people began quietly approaching the 3 women after service. Offers to babysit. Offers to drive Carol's husband to dialysis. A folded check pressed into Patricia's hand with a note that just said, for the girls, no strings attached. Small things. Late things. But real. Diane still works the occasional night shift. Carol's husband still needs his treatments. Patricia's daughter is back on her feet now in her own apartment, but Patricia still keeps her door open for anyone who needs it. Nothing about their circumstances changed overnight. What changed was that they stopped carrying it alone. And that's really what this story is about. Not 3 women with a secret, but a community that had to relearn something simple. That the people who seem the strongest are often the ones who need the most support, and that real faith isn't measured by how put together someone looks on a Sunday morning. It's measured by how we treat each other on every other day of the week. So if you know someone like Diane or Carol or Patricia, someone who always shows up, always helps and never asks for anything, maybe don't wait for a rumor to find out what they're really carrying. Ask them how they're doing, and actually wait for the answer. If this story moved you, let us know in the comments, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today.